Hi, good morning, everybody. It is Ms. Corcoran, and today we're going to be talking about photosynthesis. And before I get into the PowerPoint of photosynthesis, I want to just sort of give you an overview. And I want you to draw this while I'm drawing it on your own piece of paper. I actually have two pieces of paper here, but I want you to draw what it is I'm drawing, and I need you to be really comfortable doing this. The first thing we're going to draw is an overview of the entire process of photosynthesis. We know, and you've learned this throughout your years of education, is that photosynthesis is the process in which we take carbon dioxide and water and we turn it into sugars and oxygen in the presence of sunlight. So sunlight is the driving factor of that. So I just sort of want to draw really quickly the overall process. I'm going to draw a chloroplast, okay? So that's our chloroplast. We know that's the organelle where photosynthesis takes place. We have our thylakoid membranes, which are sort of stacks of green membranes. I'm just going to draw one here, but we have lots of others, and this is thylakoid. So that's our thylakoids. We're going to have, let me see if I have a yellow. I do have yellow. We're going to have sunlight energy right here, and it's going to be hitting the pigments of chlorophyll in the thylakoids. And what happens is we have taken up water. We know that water is one of the reactants of photosynthesis. And we're going to discover in this unit that water is actually used in the light reactions. So I'm going to put right here that these are the light. I'm just going to put RxNS for reactions. These are the light reactions. And when water is used during the light reactions, we're actually going to split it in a process called photolysis or photolysis, splitting with water. And what's going to come out after we split water is our oxygen. So we've already accounted for one reactant and one product of photosynthesis. We know that oxygen is a byproduct of photosynthesis. Okay, the other process is the process called the Calvin cycle. And the Calvin cycle is actually where the sugars are built. So I'm going to put it here as a circle with some arrows because it's a cycle. It goes round and round and round. Now, if water is one of our reactants for photosynthesis, if you recall, there's a gas that we also use. And the gas that we use is carbon dioxide. So carbon dioxide is going to come in the Calvin cycle, and it's actually going to leave as a sugar. Okay, and I'm going to just go ahead and mark that as a sugar. And that's glucose. But what's really cool is in the light reactions, we know that building something is an anabolic process. Correct. Yes. It has a non-spontaneous, it's anabolic, it requires energy, so it's endergonic, and it has a positive delta G. If it requires energy, where in the heck does that energy come from? If you guessed it comes from the sun, you're absolutely right. So the reactions that go over here in the thylakoids make some products, some intermediate products that are used to, what I like to say is pay the workers to build the cycle. You can certainly not say to a cell, let me pay you in some sunshine. We know that cellular energy is ATP. How do we get from sunshine to ATP? Well, there's some really cool steps that you're going to be learning in this unit. But what we do basically is we convert, we make two products. We send a little ATP over there, and we also send a couple of electron carriers. And is NADPH. Okay, we send those two things over there to the Calvin cycle. We provide some more molecules and some electrons to actually spit out C6H12O6. And then we send back, almost like an empty wallet, we send back ADP plus a phosphate, which we need to add back over there. And we send over NADP plus. So what did we get rid of? Well, we took the H from the NADPH, and we actually remove the phosphate, and in doing that, we know that releases energy, and in the process, there was some phosphorylation going on. But we sent both of these molecules back over to the light reaction to get sort of powered up again so they could be sent back over to the Calvin cycle. Sometimes we call these two reactions the light reactions and the dark reactions, that the Calvin cycle really doesn't need sunlight to go, which technically these anabolic reactions do not require sunlight, but what they do require is these two products right here that actually require sunlight. So the two processes are intricately connected and not independent of one another. Okay, so we're going to take a close-up look at the thylakoid. So I want you to go ahead and draw this with me. All right, I'm going to draw mine kind of big. And I always like to draw my ATP synthase on the bottom. And it sort of looks like a windmill. So the thylakoid is a double membrane, double phospholipid bilayer. So I'm drawing it like this. Kind of beautiful. All right, what we have here is photosystem 1 and photosystem 2. In between photosystem 1 and photosystem 2, we have, actually, let me draw these in a different color. We have what we call the cytochrome complex or the electron transport chain. I drew mine kind of far apart. And this is something called NADP plus reductase. It's an enzyme. All right, so what basically happens is sunshine hits the photosystems. And the electrons in the photosystems get excited. And when you're watching a soccer game or a football game or whatever, something that excites you and something really good happens, what do you do when you're excited? You jump up. You totally jump up and down. Well, the electrons do the exact same thing. The sunlight excites them and they jump up. So we have an electron that was once right here and it's going to jump up. Whee! It got really, really excited. And so this electron goes on a journey and it's going to go down, and I'm going to go ahead and sort of mark this as the electron transport chain. The electron's going to jump up and it's going to go wee, 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 like the three little pigs down the electron transport chain. Meanwhile, the same thing happened over here. Here was an electron that got excited by the sunlight and it jumped up too. So the one from PS2 is going to go wee, wee, wee and land plop right there at photosystem 1. The electron that jumped up from photosystem 1 is going to land over here on NADP plus reductase. And it's actually going to give its electron there. So interestingly enough, there's a story of electrons. The electrons go on a journey. They get excited, they jump up, they go wee, wee, wee down the electron transport chain over to PS1, where they also jumped up and then jumped over to NADP plus reductase. So what happens? Well, when we get, excuse me, an electron on NADP plus reductase, we're going to turn NADP plus into a molecule called NADPH. And I'm going to put a little box around that, okay, because that's one of our products that we needed for the Calvin cycle. Okay. Excuse me. Something really interesting happens as the electrons go from a high energy level to a lower energy level. Do you remember the idea of energy coupling? Excuse me. where we use exergonic energy releasing reactions to power something that is endergonic or energy requiring. Well, as these electrons go from a high level, to a lower level, they're losing energy. And the energy lost is going to be used to power the active transport of hydrogen ions into the middle of this thylakoid. So we have hydrogen ions. They don't want to go from low to high. We are shoving them inside of this thylakoid. Think of the thylakoid as a pillow stuffed with hydrogen ions. Okay, they don't want to go in there, but it's easy to make them go in there through active transport as the energy from the electrons going down the electron transport chain drive that active transport. We also mentioned water is used in the light reactions. So whenever something loses an electron, that electron needs to be replaced. Things don't like to have their electrons taken from them and not get them replaced. So this first electron here at photosystem 2 that jumped up and went on the journey, over to PS1, we need to replace it. And we're going to replace it by splitting water. We're actually going to split it, and our oxygen gas is going to leave. We actually have to split 2 water molecules to make 1 molecule of oxygen gas. And when we do that, looky here, we are left with more hydrogen ions. Thank you, water. By splitting water, we gain 2 more hydrogen ions in here in this inner concentration. So if we remember from the overall in the light reactions, we made NADPH, but what else did we make? ATP. So we've already talked about how we make NADPH. It's the electrons. So the electron jumps up, it's replaced by electron from water. It goes down the ETC, and it's going to replace the lost electron here when this one jumped up because it too was excited by sunlight. The one that jumps up from PS1 is going to land over here and become part of a molecule called NADPH. But what about the ATP? Let me move my drawing up just a little bit. So you know how we've shoved all these hydrogen ions here? Where do they want to go? If you were stuffed inside a small space with a bunch of other people, you would probably want to get away. And the only exit that's going to allow hydrogen ions to pass is through this enzyme right here. It's a protein channel. These hydrogen ions are going to go flowing out. This is actually called ATP synthase. It's an enzyme because its name is ACE. As the hydrogen ions go flowing out of the ATP synthase, this is actually going to turn like a windmill. Okay, it's going to go round and round and round and turn like round and round and round and turn like a windmill. And every time it goes around, we are going to be able to phosphorylate ADP and turn it into ATP. And I'm going to put a box around that too, because now we have both of our products. We have our NADPH and we have our ATP, and they're both going to leave and go over to the Calvin cycle. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, if you can tell the story of the electrons and you can tell the story of the hydrogens, then you 100% have the light reactions. So don't let this overwhelm you. You're going to need to draw this multiple times. We're going to draw it every day in class. So if I were you, I would go through this and draw it again and again and again and again. Consider this your introduction. I'm going to go ahead and stop this recording right now so that you've got this small recording to watch, and then you can go through the PowerPoint, and this won't be so totally foreign. This is your thylakoid. Photosynthesis happens in 2 parts. The light reactions happen in the thylakoid. The sugar building is the Calvin cycle. We need to create NADPH and ATP. Basically, what we're doing is we're taking sunshine and we're converting it into these two molecules. Okay? It's basically like if you've ever gone to a foreign country, or maybe the first time you came here, you had to go through money exchange. You can't use American dollars in India, and you can't use American dollars in China, and you can't use American dollars in Great Britain. Okay? You have to convert it into the local currency. Our cellular currency is ATP, and we also create an electron carrier called NADPH. Those two are made. That's the whole purpose of the light reactions. And in doing that, we're splitting water and creating the most useful, useless byproduct ever, oxygen gas. All of this we just drew right here. I know it looks a little complicated, but it really isn't. The electron gets excited, it jumps up, goes wee down the electron transport chain over to the other photosystem. Meanwhile, an electron there had already gotten excited. It jumped up and landed over and made NADPH. Boom, that's the story of the electrons. How do the hydrogens play into it? Well, we have to replace the lost electron here at PS2, so we split water. And when we split water, that's when we make our oxygen gas. And we also donate 2 more protons or hydrogen ions. But as that electron's going wee down the ETC, we are actively transporting hydrogen ions to fill up the inside of the thylakoid. They want to get away from each other so badly. Their only exit is through ATP synthase. And as they go down, it's almost like water flowing through a tunnel or wind turning a windmill. That's energy. The energy of the hydrogen ions going from high concentration to low concentration drives the phosphorylation of ADP and phosphate to make ATP. And then we have our 2 products, ATP and NADPH, that are going to go to the Calvin cycle. Okay, stopping this for real now this time. Let me know if you have any questions.